Coming up next is the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time here on Channel 14 in Milwaukee, YouTube, and Fight TV. We look back at Payback, Raw, and Smackdown from this week, along with this week's hot news, and a special guest host as David Hero. Well, some consequences for his actions last week. We'll tell you all about that and more right here, right now on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time Saturday night, episode number 806. 806 here in our first episode of May 2017. And folks, last week, as you know, we presented to you the 2017 Pro Wrestling Report Fantasy Draft, where I, Damian Nelson, took the greatest team that could be compiled, representing the Nelson family, the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment. We've got results, by the way, of the first scoring from Payback this past Sunday. We'll get to that later. But as you saw at the end of the episode, at the end of Feedback Friday last week, one David Hero got a little excited as he was presented with his number 10 wild card pick, that being Apollo Crews, and, well, got a little out of hand, if you will, and specifically put his hands on one Linda Kay. Now, as a result of those actions and David's comments over the last few weeks, David Hero is facing a one-week suspension here on the Pro Wrestling Report and will not be with us tonight. However, I am pleased to tell you that I am Damian Nelson, sitting here alongside the one, the only, the victimized last week, lovely Linda Kay. How are you, Linda?
I'm doing okay.
You reset? You're no longer concussed after that situation from last week?
Yeah, it took a little bit of healing, both physically and mentally. But I will
He attacked you. He broad-faced attacked you and didn't care. As a matter of fact, we hear that we've got a camera crew. David Hero he cared so less about injuring you last week and striking you last week that he went and took a trip to Las Vegas, Nevada.
He escaped.
And we've got a camera crew that has been with him, and apparently we have some footage of him and his, he says that he regrets what he did and would like to send his apologies from Las Vegas. So we'll get to that later on here in the broadcast. But folks, Linda, it's good to have you with us. Glad to see you're okay. A lot of people out there were worried about you after the tumble you took last week. But without further ado, let's get to now this week's big story. And of course, the big story would be the big event that WWE produced last Sunday called Payback from San Jose, California. It was a Raw exclusive pay-per-view that featured several Smackdown matches. Of course, that due to the superstar shakeup of a couple of weeks back. This was a pay-per-view where going into it, it didn't seem very noteworthy, but coming out of it with two big championship changes, title changes, it did end up being very noteworthy for sure. So, Linda, let's first talk about the matchup that had high stakes because not only was it for the United States Championship, but if the challenger, Chris Jericho, didn't defeat the champion, Kevin Owens, if he did defeat him, Chris Jericho would be moving to SmackDown as the last move in the Superstar Shakeup, and he would indeed defeat Kevin Owens and pin him and get the victory and the United States Championship and move on to the Blue Show on Tuesday nights on SmackDown. What'd you think of this contest this past Sunday night at Payback between the two?
Well, it was tremendous. Not to mention, it threw a lot of people off because a lot of people just assumed that Jericho was going to lose. They know about his upcoming tour. But what do you know? He comes out on top, takes the title back, and moves to SmackDown to face Kevin Owens.
And we'll talk about that in the Smackdown report later because that was newsworthy for sure. But you mentioned going on tour. The Fozzy concert series, if you will, is going to be rolling through the country. As a matter of fact, going to be rolling right through Milwaukee in a couple of weeks, followed by Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I think we would see on Tuesday the ultimate result of Chris Jericho's summer activity. But this match on Sunday was very well done, and I think it's important to note that as Jericho continues to evolve, as he continues to perform, if you will, he just continues to get better and better and better, and he was much better than any of us expected by winning this matchup on Sunday.
Absolutely, but it was a great match. I mean, even bringing things up from their previous match with Kevin Owens' finger on the rope, kind of things like that, just really got the crowd going, and, in the end, you would think you'd, see Kevin Owens winning.
Now, where would you rather see Jericho? Would you rather see him on Raw or on SmackDown at this point?
you know, with that response he got from the crowd on SmackDown this past week, I would say SmackDown because...
Even on Sunday he got a hell of a response at Payback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I will say Raw, you know, I saw them Raw taking a hit by losing the only Chris Jericho. But him coming on SmackDown definitely just is showing more and more that SmackDown's becoming the #1 show.
Well, that's arguable, but not many people would argue you on that. But speaking back to Raw, again, Payback was a Raw-branded pay-per-view. The Women's Championship was on the line as Bayley would defend her championship against the #1 contender, Alexa Bliss. And Alexa Bliss would come out on top, defeating Bayley in her hometown of San Jose and becoming the new Raw Women's Champion. Linda, we've talked a lot about Alexa Bliss on this program and how great she is and has been, especially since moving over to Raw. In short fashion now, just a couple of weeks after the shakeup, she becomes, see what I did there? She becomes the first ever, both Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion, first ever to hold both those titles, and she defeats the superstar in Bayley in her first championship opportunity on Raw. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it is an honor, obviously, to become the first women's champion to hold both titles, although, you know, it's only been like, what, not even a year since both titles existed, but her name is still in the history books as the first ever women's champion to hold both titles. But, I mean, week after week, we've seen Alexa just really, really come out on top. I mean, she's great on the mic, great in the ring, and just her interaction amongst any storyline they give her, and just the interactions with any of the other women's superstars.
She's a great talker. She's a great performer. She's a great everything. And now she is Raw Women's Champion. And her actions would continue into Monday night. But she truly is. And there's no question about her being championship material. But what are your thoughts on Bayley now? What happens to her going forward? Because arguably, her little girl grown up storyline had gotten a bit stale over the last few weeks. Now what?
Well, I mean, coming after a loss in her hometown, which was noted over and over. I mean...
Now, let's keep in mind, though, people say this always happens. Naomi won the SmackDown Championship or won at WrestleMania in that matchup as well. So it's not always the case.
Okay. Well, I mean, just this big hit that Bayley has taken. I mean, can we see a heel turn coming for her?
For Bayley?
I mean,
Ooh. I mean, now, I have not thought about that.
I mean, I know she's the sweetheart.
Yeah, which makes it even better if she were to turn heel.
Yeah, because, I mean, you know, like, of course, you know, throughout your career, you're a face, you're a heel, it goes back and forth. But this would be really tremendous because she's the good girl. You can't have her go bad, but, you know, maybe just week after week, if they keep this storyline with her and Alexa Bliss, we can see it really build and possibly the next pay-per-view, you know, see a big turn on from Bayley. I'd like to see that.
Well, there you are, Linda. I like to see the women's perspective on the women's division. That's what we've been needed. David would have just hated on the women.
Yeah.
I mean,
talked about the size. You know, I don't even talk about that a lot.
Right. Well, folks,
I'm 5 feet of fury myself. So.
5 feet of fury. Well, folks, a lot more happened on Payback, including a big main event matchup between Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Now, a lot of speculation as to what would, should, or could have happened in this matchup. Well, what did happen in this matchup was Braun Strowman getting a decisive victory over Roman Reigns in a hard-fought battle. Of course, Roman Reigns battered and injured coming into the match, but he fared no better at the end of the night after taking a brutal attack from Braun Strowman with the steel ring steps. This was pretty aggressive.
Yeah. I mean, that whole match, did Roman really ever seem dominant? I don't think so. It was quite a beatdown match, especially in the very end.
Yeah, Roman didn't have much of an offense at all. It was playing defense most of the night. But he was bandaged up. He was taped. Obviously, he was injured. And maybe it was too soon for him to be in the matchup. That protected Roman Reigns from the loss. However, the fans in San Jose couldn't get enough of Braun Strowman defeating Roman Reigns.
I mean, what can Roman do to really get a louder response, a lot of cheers? I mean, he does.
Well, what's your take on Roman Reigns? We've heard. You know, Dave and I have said that you know, he is a good talent. He is a good promo. He is a good performer. He is the guy. He is the. If you were building a superstar from scratch to be the face of the company, Roman Reigns would be him. Now, a lot of fans don't see that. A lot of fans don't like it. A lot of fans don't want to believe it. But what is your take on Roman Reigns overall in WWE, Linda? Are you a fan?
Absolutely. He deserves to be a top guy, the guy. Believe that.
Playa? I mean, a little Terry Long action there.
But, I mean, you know, just like what you guys have been talking about, he's Vince McMahon's chosen one, so to speak. And
so was Hogan, so was Warrior, so was Cena, so was Savage, so is Strowman, by the way.
True. But you know what? People are just going to follow along the trend. Like, the whole booing thing for Roman, like, why? I mean, just like Cena, like, I guess the thing, now is to boo the good guy, you know? You can't say that for everybody.
We have a question coming up tomorrow on Feedback Friday pertaining to that specific point. And remember, Feedback Friday you can watch on our online channels. Only doesn't air here on Channel 14 in Milwaukee. Airs on Fight, F-I-T-E, Fight TV, and YouTube, where that question is, if there were some of the stars of the 80s, specifically one big one that was introduced today, how different would it be? So to your point of what's cool to do now, we'll talk about that tomorrow on Feedback Friday, where we field your questions and comments. And folks, that is enough, or at least all that we have for Primetime of WWE Payback. We're going to talk more about Payback on the Primetime Extra podcast this week. Primetime Extra, of course, continues immediately following this broadcast, available only on our podcast channels. I want to remind you that right now, you can listen to our podcast, subscribe on whatever it is you listen to podcast-wise. If it's Podcast Addict, if it's Podbean, if it's iTunes, if it's Android, if it's Google Play, whatever you want, Stitcher Radio, we need you to simply rate and review our podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. And in time, and once each of those podcasts, reaches 100 reviews and ratings, each of those podcasts individually, Feedback Friday, Primetime, and Reaction, will be giving away to one of those people who has reviewed and rated. We'll be giving away 2 tickets to the next WWE event in your area. Pretty sweet deal for helping us out and getting this show exposed in podcast form to many more listeners. We appreciate your help with that. And with that being said, Linda, it is now time to, we went along in that segment. Good feedback there. As I said, we'll talk more about Payback, the rest of it, including the House of Horrors matchup on Primetime Extra. But with that, let's go to this week's WWE Raw report. And wow, what a Raw it was for its, I guess, lack of news that came out of it. We did get a new #1 contender for the Intercontinental Championship, and that was The Miz, who defeated Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, the endorsed Miz, all in one matchup. I was a little confused on Monday night. I don't know who to root for. But it was the interference by Bray Wyatt against one Finn Balor that caused The Miz to get the victory in the matchup. A hard-fought match between these 3 men to end the show, and a #1 contender named for Dean Ambrose's Intercontinental Championship. The Miz is the man. What did you think of this matchup, Linda?
It was great. I mean, a lot of high-flying action, which we love. We knew we were going to get a great match. Yeah. Seeing the 3 of them, and then with Dean Ambrose just piping in. I must say I loved his backstage segments, like his little pipe. It's like
when he was doing the interviews.
Yeah,
Dean is unorthodox in a sometimes great way. I think it gets a little old and a little played at times. It gets a little annoying to me at times. But overall, I do enjoy it because he is that flexible, I guess you could say, where he can do just about anything and be entertaining while he does it.
Yeah.
No, and he's the one who set up this Intercontinental Championship 3-way #1 contenders match, by the way. I would have liked to have seen Finn Balor win, but perhaps that's not his time yet, as he's obviously got some business with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
But The Miz, on a meteoric rise on Raw, his ascension on Smackdown continues over to Monday nights on Raw, and he is truly being shaped as the top guy, or one of the top guys, because let's not forget this. Your Universal Champion is Brock Lesnar. He will not be on every show, like it or not, thus meaning the Intercontinental Championship takes much more value, gets much more value, because it will be the top regularly defended singles title on the brand. And I think they proved that point this past Monday, Linda.
Absolutely. When Miz had their Intercontinental title on Smackdown, it brought a lot of prestige back to that title. And he's going to, if he does defeat Dean Ambrose, I feel he'll do the same thing, bringing that title over to Raw.
And it's interesting. You talk about bringing the prestige back to the title on SmackDown. Well, there was one person who actually did that a few years ago when they reintroduced the old school championship belt. That would be the endorsed Cody Rhodes, ladies and gentlemen, who really brought the shine and the luster back to the Intercontinental Championship. But this match, I thought, started off a little slow, but ended incredibly hot. And it seemed like Seth Rollins took maybe one too many chances in the matchup, as he may have tweaked his knee or his arm again a couple of times in that matchup, or perhaps it's just a good sell job.
Absolutely. Yeah, his knee. Every time I'm just kind of like, what?
It's cringeworthy.
Every time. It is.
In a okay way.
Yeah. Not to the point where I'm like, oh gosh, no, what are you doing? But definitely a lot of times, I think a lot of people felt that same way. But, he's just adding, again, that high-flying action to the matches that you want to see, that I want to see.
Folks, on another carryover from Payback the night before, the Hardys confronted by Cesaro and Sheamus. Now, keep in mind on Payback, Cesaro and Sheamus had a losing effort to the Hardys, not becoming the new tag champions, but getting a thorough beatdown after the match on the Hardys. This after during the matchup, bloodying Matt Hardy and knocking one of Jeff's teeth right out of his mouth. A brutal matchup on Payback, which we'll talk more about on Primetime Extra. But now going forward, these two teams are obviously going to continue. What do you expect to see going forward from these two men, or these four men, these two teams, Cesaro and Sheamus, and the Hardys?
I see just a beatdown happening every time.
Really? Cesaro and Sheamus were thoroughly rough on Sunday night against the Hardys.
Yeah.
I mean, now let's be real here. The Hardys, specifically Jeff, have a history of being very, very thoroughly real and hefty in the ring as well. But it was a good match to watch on Sunday. I like the confrontation. Now Seal, good Lord, he wasn't there.
Kiss from a Rose. Oh.
Cesaro and Sheamus clearly playing the role of the bad guys, the heels, if you will, against the Hardys, the fan favorites.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that match. I mean, obviously, like, anytime the Hardy Boys music hits, like, everybody pops, right? Everybody's a big fan of the Hardys. And so, it's great to see them back. And they still are giving a lot in the matches.
Oh, they're giving a lot. Yeah, they've got it.
Absolutely.
They've still got it for sure. And I guess we'll go into, I think the next Raw branded pay-per-view is Extreme Rules. So
how perfect.
The team of Extreme against Cesaro and Sheamus, that is going to be an interesting match to see, because the brutality will be personified in that matchup. Folks, we got to mention the fact that a man who hasn't gotten a win in a very long time, in fact, in his first match now, or his first win, rather, since being moved over to the Raw brand, the man who David Hero ended up with as his number 10, Linda, in the draft last week. I know you may have trouble remembering who his wild card pick was because he knocked you off set. But Apollo Crews gets a victory over the endorsed Heath Slater. So maybe, perhaps, I don't know if it's his affiliation with the Titus brand or his affiliation with the Super Friends. Maybe things are looking up a bit for Apollo Crews. What do you think has been his hindrance in the last few months? And is this a new push, if you will, for Crews?
Absolutely. He needed that push. He came in doing his matches, doing great. I mean, great athleticism, physicality, looks great, but bringing Titus O'Neil in really definitely adds a lot more to this. And perhaps
he likes taking selfies, like you, Linda.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Did you see Rhino photobombing in that photo?
Yes, yes, indeed.
But I'm really curious to see, because the whole Titus brand thing didn't really work with the New Day.
Yeah.
So now it's trying to put it on Apollo Crews. Is it just going to be a selfie thing? Who knows? Obviously, I see this.
Well, keep in mind how we got to the matchup. Titus was upset because he was talking to Apollo Crews, the quote-unquote enemy, backstage in Heath Slater earlier, thus the match being made. Don't know where this is going to go, but at least it's some story with some substance to make me perhaps care even a little bit about Titus O'Neil, who's a great and tremendous athlete, and Apollo Crews in WWE. And it seems like Apollo already reaping the benefits of this story.
Absolutely.
What were your overall thoughts on Raw this past Monday night, Linda Kay? What'd you think from show start to show finish, from A to Z, if you will?
I enjoyed it. I thought it started great with the 8-woman tag match.
There's a lot of women on Raw this past Monday night.
And just putting Alexa on that pedestal. I mean, she doesn't need, height-wise maybe, but in her character herself, or just, her championship reign herself, she doesn't even need that. Yeah. She is just at the top of her game right now. And putting her, even like the intro with her bumping into Nia Jax, that was pretty hilarious too. Yeah. But I enjoyed that action. And then just, closing out with that triple threat match for the number one contender for the Intercontinental title. A lot of action on Raw. I think overall it was a good show.
Passing or failing grade would you give it?
I would say passing.
All right, an A, C, or an F? Well, if it's passing, it's either an A or a C. There's no Bs. We don't do betweens here.
Oh, no Bs?
No, we don't do betweens.
Oh gosh, that was going to say B. I guess C. Well,
it'd have to be a C.
C.
It was
C
nothing.
plus.
It was no
C
better.
plus.
No better than the average
C
shows. In fact, for whatever reason, not sure what the television competition was on Monday night, but it was the second lowest rated episode of the year of Raw, and usually they get a pretty good bump coming out of a pay-per-view. So a bit surprising in that regard. But Thank you for that. Thank you for your thoughts on Raw, Linda. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, this lady over here has the event center. We're going to talk about SmackDown, and we've got hot news, including a big purchase of a historical wrestling company and a superstar who found himself in jail this past weekend due to some felonies that he was charged with. All that and more coming up when we return here on the Pro Wrestling Report, primetime on Channel 14.
Hi, gang. Mean Gene Okerlund here on My 24, and you're watching the Pro Wrestling Report. All of the news about wrestling, not only here in Milwaukee, but throughout the world. Stay up to date. Join us every Saturday night.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report, prime time Saturday night. Damian Nelson sitting alongside Linda Kay. David Hero serving out a 1-week suspension. In fact, during the break, we received footage from David, and I can't really describe it because clearly he says he's convalescing in Las Vegas and trying to, he's feeling regret and remorse for his attack on you last week. So I can't describe it, so let's just go to it. Here is how David Hero finds himself in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Freaking fantastic. Awesome.
The Cheetah Club? And was that D'Lo Brown? Linda, I'm sorry. I truly thought he was despondent, a little upset over the fact that he literally struck you and dang near injured you last week, yet he finds his way by going to a strip club in Las Vegas. And who was that woman with him? Did he buy one?
I don't know.
I didn't know you could bring him out of the club. I knew you could take him to a particular room in the club, but I didn't know you could bring him out of the club.
Dave Hero, my super friend of over 15 years, and
he's going to end up...
What has happened?
He's going to end up getting Bill O'Reilly kind of treatment out of this if he's not careful.
Needs to shape it up. Well,
but enough about him, folks. Let's get to this week's SmackDown report. And, of course, SmackDown is brought to you by Fight TV. That's F-I-T-E, Fight. Fight TV, it's the network available on your mobile device that you can stream right from that device to your Wi-Fi connected device to watch things such as Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, these very shows for the Pro Wrestling Report, What Culture Pro Wrestling, which had a big show over the weekend as well, all available on Fight TV. And all you have to do, you have it on your phone there, Linda? Fight, F-I-T-E. All you have to do to get it right now for free, go to the website you see on your screen. That's Fight, FITE.tv/PWR. And with that, let's talk about SmackDown, and let's talk about what we alluded to earlier, Linda Kay. Kevin Owens is back. He challenges Chris Jericho for the rematch on Tuesday for the United States Championship. He wins the championship back. Owens is champ again, but he also decimates Chris Jericho at the end of the match.
Unbelievable.
That chair shot he took into the corner with his head in between the chair and the back of it, and then just taking it full on. It was an amazing beatdown by Owens on Jericho. Clearly, we're not going to see Jericho back in SmackDown world for a little while. But what do you think about Owens being champion once again?
I'm just curious.
You're not an Owens fan? You don't like Owens?
No, I actually...
He's the face of America, you know?
Yes, I see that. It's plastered on the walkway coming down. But no, I guess I'm just curious now who... I mean, obviously, AJ Styles. But, I mean, not who, sorry, but how... they're going to continue this.
I think it's over between Jericho and Owens.
Well, no, with AJ Styles, though, being the #1
Yeah, well, I mean, they had words as well this past Tuesday night. Obviously, they have the matchup at Backlash for the United States Championship, which, as we talked about the Intercontinental Championship, they're also making the U.S. Championship, or attempting to anyways, making it as important as at least the Intercontinental Championship and just a hair under that of the World Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown, which is a good thing. But I'm intrigued and interested to see what is going to be a tremendous matchup at Backlash between Kevin Owens and AJ Styles in Chicago.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that one. I mean, you have two guys that are great in the ring. The crowd loves both. I mean, granted, so AJ has become the biggest face, the baby face, right, of SmackDown? Am I right? The #1 baby face? Okay. But him and Owens, I'm excited to see this because you've got AJ Styles, just great technical wrestler, and you got Kevin Owens, also great technically, but also just more physical and more brutal. And again, we talk about the prestige of these titles, especially since the SmackDown Championship wasn't Or
non-title match on
Thank
Sunday
you,
at
yes,
Payback.
Thank you. So I don't know. I'm really excited for this. So long, Jericho, but we know you
For
will
now,
be back.
he'll be back better than ever. And I say that not as a mark for Jericho, which if I were, I'd admit it because it's not a problem. But every time he has come back, he has been better than ever. So I look forward to his return again over on the SmackDown side of things whenever that may happen. So before, we got a lot more to talk about from SmackDown, but again, only so much television time here. So we're going to defer some of the other topics to the Primetime Extra podcast, which airs on podcast form immediately following this broadcast, folks. We're going to talk about the Welcoming Committee. They got a name now, which is Carmella, Natalya, and Tamina. We're also going to talk about Jinder Mahal's big win over Sami Zayn and the importance of the Singh brothers. But before, without talking about all that, Linda, your overall thoughts on Tuesday's SmackDown on the USA Network. What did you think of the show?
Passing grade.
Passing grade. Now, would that be an A or a C, Linda?
A.
I guess a D is passing as well.
Is it really?
Well, I mean, you can get through with D's, right?
Yeah, but I think if you get a D in a certain class, you may have to retake it.
That's just a prick teacher.
Oh, yes. But no, I really enjoyed it. Just the beginning with Chris Jericho coming out to the very end, unfortunately seeing that beat down on him. But, you know, obviously it's just bringing a lot of heat, a lot of energy going into the rivalry between Kevin Owens and AJ Styles.
Absolutely, folks. As I said, more SmackDown discussion on this week's Primetime Extra podcast. With that, it's time to go to this week's Event Center. Linda, hey, take it away from right here.
Absolutely. So in just 2 weeks, WWE invades Chicago. We've got the NXT,
3 big shows.
Yes, NXT TakeOver, Saturday night, May 20th, and Sunday we've got Ringside with JR in that afternoon, followed by WWE Backlash Sunday night. And all details are available at WWE.com.
Big weekend from WWE, and it's interesting, NXT now doing non-major pay-per-view event takeover events. We're going to talk about that as well on the Primetime Extra podcast. The question, we'll finally answer it because it's been asked frequently, is NXT growing too big too soon? We'll talk about that on the Primetime Extra podcast. With that, let's go to this week's hot news, ladies and gentlemen. And this past weekend, we received news, as did many of you, from TMZ, who's so good at this, that X-Pac, former WWE TNA star, was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport and charged with 5 different felonies, including possession of crystal meth and marijuana. Now, he was jailed but released the next day after posting bond, and he has been adamant ever since in his assertion that these were not methamphetamines. It was not crystal meth. He hasn't addressed the marijuana thing, though. Says it was not crystal meth, and he has acknowledged he was a meth head in the past. He says he is happy to be clean and sober. This is a misunderstanding. He had some, basically, I think they're weight loss pills that he had been taking due to a yeast infection that he's been suffering from the last year. And he said the truth will come out over time here with this, but 5 felony charges, I'm not sure he's going to be able to, I'm not sure there's a truth that will make those charges go away.
Well, let's just hope for the best for Sean.
Absolutely. X-Pac, a friend of the program, we do wish him the best, and I will take his word at this time until further information is released. But he did, unfortunately, suffer that bad news over the weekend, missed a show in the UK as a result. Folks, also big news this weekend as it was announced by the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA, you know, the oldest wrestling body in the world, that it has been purchased, and its new owner is the man who tried to do the same with Impact Wrestling, TNA Impact Wrestling, Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan purchasing the NWA, Linda, which is incredibly unique to me because the NWA, while still exists, and is a big part of the Cauliflower Alley Club, of course, that is going on in Las Vegas, Nevada earlier this week, or was going on earlier this week. He's bought the titles, he's bought the names, he's bought the rights, he's bought everything. We don't know what he plans to do with it yet, though. Is he going to launch it as a new company? And if so, can it sustain itself as a new company? Or will it go back to being the governing body of a lot of these independent wrestling organizations across the country? All that will be told in due time. But at this point, Billy Corgan, the new owner of the National Wrestling Alliance. He gets the title belt as well with that, Linda. But, you know, we talked about the draft earlier, and Linda, I understand you've got the results of the first scoring event this past Sunday night, Payback on pay-per-view.
Absolutely. Well, the Payback draft results are in. Super Friends start in the lead, though, Damian, with 240 points, and the Nelson family obtained...
One more time. Is that a typographical error?
Super Friends
start in the lead
yeah.
with 200. That's fine. You know, that's fine.
You know what? Nelson family?
90 points,
You got
I got that.
150 points.
Oh, that's
For
good.
payback, so
I'm
yeah.
90 points behind. I can make that up easy.
Absolutely.
As Buford T. Justice said to Junior when they were going to drive over the bridge, I can make that easy, Junior.
All right. Well,
I'll make that easy as well. Thank you, Linda, for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much to the Hardys, which were my MVPs and my point leaders this past Sunday at Payback. With that, Linda, the show is done. Your first run in a long time here on Primetime is over. We'll see what happens though next week if David Hero's suspension is extended. But with that, you will be with me again for tomorrow night's Feedback Friday. So we're looking forward to that.
I'm excited.
For Linda, this is Damian saying thank you so much for joining us here on Channel 14. We'll see you right now exclusively on our podcast channels with Primetime Extra.